The sun beat down on Fort Irwin, California, turning the Mojave Desert into a furnace. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves stood at attention in the briefing room, her jaw set, her eyes forward. Around her, 20 male soldiers shifted in their seats. Some whispered. Some smirked. None of them looked at her with respect. She was used to it. Maya was 32 years old, 5'6", lean and strong. She'd been in the Army for 11 years. She'd served 2 tours overseas. She'd earned every stripe on her sleeve. But to these men, she was just a woman. A woman who didn't belong. The commanding officer, Colonel Hastings, stood at the front of the room. He was a large man with gray hair and a voice like gravel. He cleared his throat. "Listen up," he said. "In 48 hours, we begin Operation Desert Phantom. This is a survival and evasion exercise. You'll be dropped in the desert with minimal supplies. Your mission is to reach the extraction point 70 miles north. You'll have 72 hours, no phones, no GPS, just your training and your instincts." Maya felt her pulse quicken. This was what she'd been waiting for. A chance to prove herself. A chance to show these men she was more than capable. But then she heard it. A low chuckle from behind her. "Bet she doesn't make it past the first night," someone whispered. $20, says she. "Quits before sunrise," another voice replied. Maya's hands tightened into fists. But she didn't turn around. She kept her eyes forward. She'd learned long ago that reacting only made it worse. Colonel Hastings continued. "This exercise is voluntary. Anyone who completes it earns a slot in the Advanced Reconnaissance course. Anyone who quits or fails to reach extraction stays here. Understood?" "Yes, sir," the room shouted in unison. Maya's voice was the loudest. After the briefing, she walked alone across the base. The desert wind whipped sand against her face. She pulled her cap lower and kept walking. She didn't go to the mess hall where the others were gathering. She didn't want to hear their jokes, their doubts, their certainty that she'd fail. Instead, she went to the small chapel at the edge of the base. It was empty, quiet. She sat in the back pew and closed her eyes. Maya thought about her father. He'd been a Marine, tough as nails. He'd taught her how to shoot, how to survive, how to never give up. He'd died when she was 19, just before she enlisted. She'd joined the Army to honor him, to make him proud. But the Army hadn't been what she expected. She'd faced doubt at every turn. Instructors who went easier on the men. Commanders who overlooked her for promotions. Teammates who didn't trust her to have their backs. She'd pushed through it all. She'd trained harder, ran faster, shot straighter, but it was never enough. There was always another test. Another man who thought she didn't belong. This exercise would be different. It had to be. She opened her eyes and stood. She had 48 hours to prepare. The next 2 days were a blur. Maya checked her gear a dozen times. Canteen, knife, compass, fire starter, first aid kit, protein bars, a small tarp. Everything she'd need to survive 3 days in the desert. She studied maps of the terrain. She memorized water sources. She ran through survival scenarios in her mind. She was ready. But the night before the exercise, doubt crept in. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling. What if they were right? What if she wasn't strong enough? What if she failed? No. She pushed the thoughts away. She'd come too far to doubt herself now. The morning of the exercise arrived cold and dark. The soldiers gathered at the airfield before dawn. Maya stood apart from the group, checking her pack one last time. Lieutenant Briggs approached her. He was young, maybe 25, with a cocky grin and too much confidence. "Reeves," he said. "You sure you want to do this?" Maya looked up at him. "I'm sure. It's going to be brutal out there," he continued. "No shame in sitting this one out. Let the men handle it." Her eyes narrowed. "I've been in worse," he laughed. "Sitting at a desk overseas doesn't count." Before she could respond, he walked away, still laughing. Several other soldiers joined him, slapping him on the back. Maya felt the anger rise in her chest, but she swallowed it down. Words wouldn't prove anything. Only action would. Colonel Hastings appeared and blew his whistle. "Load up." The soldiers climbed into 3 helicopters. Maya was assigned to the second bird. She sat between 2 large men who didn't acknowledge her. The helicopter lifted off and the base disappeared below them. They flew for 30 minutes. The sun rose over the desert, painting the sand golden red. It was beautiful and deadly. The helicopter descended. The side door opened. The wind howled. Go, go, go! The loadmaster shouted. One by one, the soldiers jumped out, landing in the soft sand below. Maya was last. She took a breath, gripped her pack, and leaped. She hit the ground and rolled. The helicopter was already lifting away. The sound of the rotors faded, and then there was silence. She stood and looked around. The desert stretched in every direction, endless, empty, unforgiving. 70 miles to the extraction point. 72 hours. She checked her compass, adjusted her pack, and started walking north. Behind her, she heard voices. The men were grouping together, forming teams. No one called for her to join them. She walked alone, and she didn't look back. The first 6 hours were manageable. Maya kept a steady pace, moving north through the rocky terrain. The sun climbed higher, and the temperature soared past 100 degrees. She rationed her water carefully. Small sips every 30 minutes. She knew the desert's biggest killer wasn't the heat. It was dehydration. She'd covered nearly 12 miles by noon. Good progress. At this rate, she'd reach the extraction point with time to spare. But the desert had other plans. Around midday, she heard voices behind her. She turned and saw 3 soldiers approaching. She recognized them from the helicopter. Lieutenant Briggs was in the lead. The other 2 were Corporal Dixon and Private Marshall. They were moving fast, too fast for the heat. Briggs saw her and grinned. Well, look who's still standing. Maya nodded but didn't respond. She turned and kept walking. Hey, Reeves, Briggs called. You know you're going the wrong way, right? She stopped, turned. I'm heading north. Same as you. He pulled out his compass and made a show of checking it. North is that way. He pointed 15 degrees to the east of her direction. Maya checked her own compass. She was right. He was wrong. Your compass is off, she said calmly. Probably the metal on your pack. North is this way, Briggs laughed. You calling me wrong? I'm saying your compass is wrong. Dixon and Marshall exchanged glances. They looked uncertain. Briggs stepped closer to Maya, his smile fading. I've been navigating since before you joined up, sweetheart. I know how to read a compass. Maya held his gaze. So do I. For a moment, tension crackled between them. Then Briggs shook his head and turned away. Whatever. Get lost out here if you want. We're going the right way. He looked at Dixon and Marshall. Come on. The 3 men headed east. Maya watched them go. She almost called out. Almost warned them again. But she knew they wouldn't listen. She turned north and kept walking alone. By late afternoon, the landscape changed. The flat desert gave way to rocky hills and dry ravines. Maya moved carefully, watching for snakes and unstable ground. She found a small patch of shade beneath an overhang and stopped to rest. She ate half a protein bar and took 3 small sips of water. She checked her canteen, still 3/4 full. Good. As she rested, she heard something, a sound in the distance, voices, shouting. She stood and moved toward the sound, climbing a small ridge. Below in a ravine, she saw 2 men, soldiers from the exercise. One was sitting on the ground, holding his ankle. The other was standing over him, looking panicked. Maya recognized them. Stevens and Lopez, both young, both inexperienced. She slid down the embankment toward them. What happened? She asked. Stevens looked up, relief flooding his face. He fell. I think his ankle's broken. Lopez was pale, sweating. His ankle was already swelling, turning purple. Maya knelt beside him and gently examined the injury. Lopez winced. It wasn't broken, but it was a bad sprain. He wouldn't be walking on it. Can you help us? Stevens asked. Please? Maya looked at Lopez, then at Stevens. Every instinct told her to help. But helping them would slow her down. It might cost her the mission. And these were the same men who'd laughed at her. Who'd bet she wouldn't make it, but that didn't matter. She wasn't like them. We need to stabilize the ankle, she said. She pulled medical tape from her pack and used 2 flat rocks as a makeshift splint. She worked quickly, efficiently. Lopez gritted his teeth but didn't cry out. Can you stand? Maya asked. Lopez tried. He got halfway up before the pain forced him back down. I can't do it. Stevens looked at Maya desperately. What do we do? Maya thought fast. The extraction point was still 58 miles away. Lopez couldn't walk. And the exercise rules were clear. No rescue unless it was a life-threatening emergency. A sprained ankle didn't qualify, but leaving him here felt wrong. There's a ranger station about 8 miles southeast, Maya said. Not part of the exercise. But they can help him. 8 miles? Stephen said. I can't carry him that far. You won't have to, Maya replied. She pulled out her tarp and cut it into strips, fashioning a makeshift travois, a drag stretcher. Put him on this. You can pull him. It'll be slow, but you'll make it before dark. Stephen stared at her. You're helping us? After everything? Maya secured the last knot. This isn't about me. It's about getting him to safety. But you'll lose time, Stephen said. You might not make extraction. Maya stood and adjusted her pack. That's my problem. Get him to the ranger station. They'll call it in. Lopez looked up at her, his eyes wet. Thank you, Sergeant, she nodded. Good luck. She turned and started walking north again, leaving the 2 men behind. But she'd lost 90 minutes. And the sun was already dropping toward the horizon. She pushed herself harder. The temperature began to fall as evening approached, but the terrain grew rougher. She climbed steep inclines and navigated narrow passes. Her legs burned. Her lungs ached. By the time the sun set, she'd covered 24 miles, not bad, but not good enough. She found a small shelter between 2 large boulders and made camp for the night. She didn't risk a fire. Too much attention. Instead, she wrapped herself in what remained of her tarp and chewed on a protein bar. The desert night was cold. Brutally cold. The temperature dropped 40 degrees. Maya shivered but didn't sleep much. She couldn't afford to. At first light, she was moving again. Day 2 was harder. Her water was running low. She'd planned to refill at a known spring marked on her map. But when she arrived, it was dry. The drought had claimed it. She stared at the cracked earth where water should have been. This was a problem. A serious problem. She had maybe a quarter canteen left. 46 miles to go. In 100-degree heat, she could turn back. Head for the ranger station. Call for extraction. But that would mean quitting. And Maya Reeves didn't quit. She checked her map. There was another water source. A small canyon 15 miles northeast. It was off her direct route, but she didn't have a choice. She adjusted her course and kept moving. The heat on day 2 was worse than day 1. The sun was merciless. The air shimmered. Maya's lips cracked. Her tongue felt thick. Every step was an effort, but she pushed on. By late afternoon, she reached the canyon. She scrambled down the rocky slope, searching desperately for water. And there it was, a small pool fed by an underground spring. Clear and cool, Maya dropped to her knees and drank. Not too much, not too fast. But enough. She refilled her canteen, drank again, and soaked her bandana in the cool water. Wrapping it around her neck, she felt hope again, but then she heard it. A voice. Weak. Desperate. Help. Someone. Help. Maya stood and moved toward the sound. Around a bend in the canyon, she found him. Lieutenant Briggs. He was lying in the shade, barely conscious. His lips were white. His skin was gray. Severe dehydration. Maybe heat stroke. Dixon and Marshall were nowhere to be seen. Maya rushed to his side. Briggs, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open. Reeves? His voice was a rasp. Water, please. She lifted her canteen to his lips. He drank greedily. Slow, she said. Small sips. He coughed, then focused on her face. You were right, compass was wrong. We got lost. Where are Dixon and Marshall? Gone left me. Went for help hours ago. Maya's jaw tightened. They'd abandoned him. She checked his pulse. Rapid. Weak. He was in bad shape. He needed medical attention soon, but the nearest help was miles away, and she only had so much water. If she stayed to help him, she'd miss extraction. She'd fail the mission. But if she left him, he might die. Maya looked at the dying man before her, then at the canyon walls, then at the sky, and she made her choice. Maya didn't hesitate. She couldn't leave him to die. She wouldn't, no matter what he'd said to her, no matter how he'd treated her. She wasn't going to let a man die in the desert. Listen to me, Briggs, she said firmly. I'm going to get you out of here. But you have to help me. You have to stay conscious. Can you do that? He nodded weakly. Maya worked fast. She fashioned another travois from branches and paracord. She gave Briggs more water, small amounts at regular intervals. She wet his shirt to cool him down. She moved him into deeper shade. Then she faced the terrible math. The extraction point was still 40 miles away. She had maybe 36 hours left. Briggs couldn't walk. She'd have to drag him. That would cut her speed in half. Maybe worse, and her water wouldn't last. Not for 2 people. Not in this heat. But there was another option. A slim one. She pulled out her map and studied it carefully. There was an old mining road 12 miles west. It wasn't part of the exercise zone, but occasionally park rangers used it. If she could get Briggs there, someone might pass by. He'd have a chance. 12 miles, dragging a grown man? In the desert heat. It seemed impossible, but Maya had done impossible things before. She hoisted her pack. Briggs, I'm getting you to a road. You're going to make it, but you have to hold on. Why? He whispered. Why are you helping me? She looked down at him. Because it's the right thing to do. She grabbed the travois and started pulling. The first mile was agony. The travois caught on every rock. Briggs groaned with each jolt. Maya's shoulders screamed. Her legs trembled. But she didn't stop. The sun began to set, offering some relief from the heat. But the terrain grew more difficult. She had to navigate around boulders, through narrow passages, down steep slopes. By midnight, she'd covered 5 miles. Her hands were raw and bleeding from the rope. Her back felt like it might break. She'd given Briggs the last of the water an hour ago. Her own throat was dust. She stopped in the shelter of a rock formation. She laid Briggs down gently. His breathing was shallow but steady. He'd passed out an hour earlier. Maya sat beside him and let herself feel the pain. Every muscle ached. Her feet were blistered. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. She was running on empty. For the first time, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. If she'd traded her life for his. No. She couldn't think like that. She closed her eyes for just a moment. Just to rest. When she opened them, the sun was rising. She'd fallen asleep. She checked her watch. She'd lost 3 hours. Panic seized her. No, she checked Briggs. Still breathing. Still alive. She grabbed the travois and started moving again. Faster now, desperate. The morning heat built quickly. Maya's vision began to blur. She stumbled. Caught herself. Kept going. 7 miles. 8 miles. 9 miles. Her body was shutting down. She knew the signs. Severe dehydration. Heat exhaustion. She was approaching the limit of what a human could endure. But she was close. The mining road had to be near 10 miles. 11 miles. She crested a ridge and looked down. There it was. A dirt road cutting through the desert. Empty, but real. She'd made it. Maya half-dragged, half-carried Briggs down the slope. She positioned him in the shade of a large rock beside the road where he'd be visible to anyone passing by. She took off her jacket and laid it over him. She wrote a note on a piece of paper from her pack. Soldier down. Heat stroke. Needs immediate medical attention. She pinned it to his shirt. Then she checked his pulse one more time. Still there. Still fighting. You're going to make it, she whispered. She stood and looked at the road. She could stay. Wait for a ranger. Get rescued herself, but that would mean failing the mission. And she hadn't come this far to fail. She checked her watch. She had 24 hours to cover 40 miles. If she pushed herself harder than she'd ever pushed before, she might make it. She looked down at Briggs one last time. Then she turned north and started running mile after mile. Hour after hour, Maya pushed her body beyond its limits. She had no water, no food. Nothing but willpower. The sun climbed higher. The heat became unbearable. Her vision tunneled. Her thoughts became confused. She saw things that weren't there. Mirages. Her father in his Marine uniform walking beside her. Her mother calling her name, but she kept moving. 20 miles. 25 miles. 30 miles. She fell. Got up, fell again. Got up again. Her body was trying to shut down. But her mind wouldn't let it. 35 miles she could barely see now. Could barely think. Everything was pain and heat and endless sand. But she could see something ahead. A structure. The extraction point, 5 more miles. That was all. She tried to run. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. She stumbled forward, each step a battle. 4 miles. 3 miles. She fell and this time couldn't get up right away. She lay in the sand, gasping. The sun was directly overhead. Merciless. Get up, Maya, get up. She heard her father's voice. Not a hallucination this time. A memory from basic training, from the hardest day of her life. Never quit, Maya, never quit. She pressed her hands into the burning sand and pushed herself up. 2 miles. She could see figures now. People at the extraction point. A tent, vehicles 1 mile. Her vision was fading, going dark around the edges. Her heart was racing too fast. Her body temperature was critical, but she was close. So close, half a mile, she tried to call out. No sound came. Her throat was too dry. Quarter mile. She could see faces now. Someone pointing at her. People running toward her, but her legs finally gave out. Maya collapsed face first into the sand. She heard shouting. Felt hands on her. Someone lifting her. It's Reeves. We need medical, now. Water touched her lips. Cool hands on her forehead. Stay with us, Sergeant. Stay with us, she tried to speak. Tried to tell them about Briggs. About the mining road. But the darkness took her. And everything went black. 72 hours after the exercise began, Colonel Hastings stood in the command tent at the extraction point. 16 soldiers had made it. 4 had quit. 3 had been picked up for minor injuries and 1 was still unaccounted for. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves. They'd found her 3 hours ago, unconscious, less than a quarter mile from extraction. She'd been airlifted to the base hospital. The doctor said it was the worst case of dehydration and heat exhaustion they'd ever seen in a survivor. She should have been dead, but she'd made it barely. What Hastings didn't understand was why it had taken her so long. She was one of the best navigators on base. She should have been among the first to arrive. Then the radio crackled. Colonel Hastings, this is Ranger Station 7. We found one of your men on Mining Road 12. Lieutenant Briggs. Severe dehydration. He's alive, but barely. He keeps saying the same thing. Says a woman saved his life. Says she dragged him 12 miles. Says we need to thank Staff Sergeant Reeves. Hastings felt his blood run cold. Repeat that, Ranger 7. Sir, Lieutenant Briggs says Reeves saved his life. He says she found him dying, got him to the road, then continued the mission. Sir, is that true? Hastings looked at the map. Mining Road 12 was 15 miles off course. Round trip 30 miles, plus dragging a full-grown man, and she'd still made it to extraction. He grabbed his radio. Get me everything. I want to know exactly what happened out there. Over the next hour, the pieces came together. Stevens and Lopez confirmed she'd stopped to help them. Cost her 90 minutes. Briggs confirmed she'd found him dying and dragged him 12 miles to safety. The GPS tracker in her pack showed her entire route. Showed the detours, the stops, the impossible journey. Maya Reeves had covered over 90 miles in 72 hours, in 100-degree heat, with almost no water. While saving 3 men, Hastings sat down heavily. In 30 years of service, he'd never seen anything like it. One of the medics entered the tent. Sir, Sergeant Reeves is awake. She's asking if she made it in time. If she completed the mission. Hastings stood. I need to see her now. Maya opened her eyes to white ceiling tiles and the smell of antiseptic. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Her body ached everywhere. A hospital. She was in a hospital. Memories flooded back. The desert, Briggs, the final miles collapsing. She tried to sit up. Pain shot through her shoulders. Easy, Sergeant. A nurse appeared beside her bed. You've been through hell. Don't push it. Did I? Maya's voice was a rasp. Did I make it? Extraction? The nurse smiled gently. You made it. Quarter mile short, but they counted it. You're safe now. Maya closed her eyes. She'd made it. Relief washed over her. But then reality set in. Quarter mile short. She hadn't actually reached the point. Would they disqualify her? Had she sacrificed everything for nothing? The door opened. Colonel Hastings entered, his face unreadable. Maya tried to sit at attention in the bed. Sir, at ease, Reeves. He pulled a chair beside her bed and sat down. For a long moment he just looked at her. Sir, I can explain. I know what you did out there, he interrupted. His voice was quiet. All of it. Maya's heart sank. She'd failed. She'd broken protocol. Helped other soldiers when the exercise was individual. Gone off course. I know you stopped for Stevens and Lopez, Hastings continued. Cost you 90 minutes. I know you found Briggs dying and dragged him 12 miles to safety. I know you gave him your water, your food, everything, he paused. I also know you covered over 90 miles in 72 hours, in conditions that would have killed most soldiers. Maya swallowed. Sir, I know the rules said reach the extraction point, Hastings said. They didn't say abandon your fellow soldiers to die. He leaned forward. Reeves, in 30 years of service, I've seen a lot of soldiers. Strong soldiers. Brave soldiers. But what you did out there, he shook his head. That wasn't just strength. That was character. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. She fought them back. "Briggs is alive because of you," Hastings said. "The doctors say another 2 hours and he would have been gone. You saved his life. Did he make it, sir? Is he okay?" "He'll recover fully." "Thanks to you." Hastings stood. "You need to rest now." "But Reeves, you passed with the highest marks I've ever given, sir." Maya's voice broke. "You earned your slot in advanced reconnaissance, and a lot more than that." He moved toward the door, then paused. "There are some people outside who want to see you." "I'll send them in," he left. Maya lay back against the pillows, overwhelmed. She'd passed. She'd actually passed. The door opened again. Stevens and Lopez entered, both looking sheepish. Lopez was on crutches. "Sergeant Reeves," Stevens said quietly. We wanted to say thank you. If you hadn't helped us, Lopez would have." He trailed off. Lopez stepped forward. "I told the colonel everything. What you did for us. I told him you could have made it hours earlier if you hadn't stopped." "You didn't have to do that," Maya said. "Yes, we did," Lopez replied. "It was the right thing to do. Like what you did for us." They left, and moments later Lieutenant Briggs entered. He looked terrible, pale, weak, with an IV still in his arm. But he was alive. He stood at the foot of her bed, and for a long moment he said nothing. "I was wrong about you," he finally said. His voice was thick with emotion. "Everything I said. Everything I thought. I was wrong." Maya didn't respond. "You should have left me," Briggs continued. "I would have. If it had been you lying there, I would have left you and finished the mission." He looked down. "But you didn't. You gave up everything to save me. A man who treated you like you didn't belong." "You're a soldier," Maya said simply. "That's all that mattered." Briggs's eyes were wet. "I told the colonel everything. I told him you're the best soldier I've ever served with. And I meant it." He saluted her. A real salute. Full of respect. Maya returned it from her bed. Over the next 3 days, Maya recovered in the hospital. Her story spread through the base like wildfire. The woman they'd mocked. The woman they'd bet wouldn't last a night. She'd done what none of them could have done. On the 4th day, Colonel Hastings returned. "How are you feeling, Reeves?" "Better, sir. Ready to get back to duty?" "Good. Because there's something you need to see." He handed her a tablet. On the screen was an official Army commendation letter. It praised her actions during Operation Desert Phantom. Her courage. Her sacrifice. Her unwavering commitment to her fellow soldiers. But that wasn't all. "Keep reading," Hastings said. The letter continued. "In recognition of extraordinary heroism and selfless service above and beyond the call of duty, Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves is hereby awarded the Soldier's Medal." Maya's breath caught. The Soldier's Medal. The highest honor for non-combat heroism. "Sir, I was just doing my job." "No, Reeves. You were doing what few soldiers ever do. You put others before yourself. You showed what real strength looks like." He smiled. "There's more. Your application for Special Forces assessment has been approved. If you want it, you start training in 6 weeks. Special Forces. The elite. The best of the best. Something she'd dreamed of but never thought possible." "I want it, sir. I thought you might." He stood. "There's a ceremony tomorrow. Base-wide formation. You'll receive your medal in front of everyone. The whole base will be there." After he left, Maya sat alone with the news. Everything she'd worked for. Everything she'd endured. It had led to this moment. The next morning, Maya stood at attention in her dress uniform on the parade ground. Before her, nearly 1,000 soldiers stood in formation. The same soldiers who doubted her, mocked her, bet she'd fail. They were all watching now. Colonel Hastings stepped forward with the medal. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves demonstrated extraordinary heroism during Operation Desert Phantom. Despite facing impossible odds, despite severe personal risk, she chose to save the lives of her fellow soldiers. She embodies the highest ideals of the United States Army. He pinned the medal to her chest. "This base is better for having you, Sergeant. The Army is better for having you." The formation erupted in applause. Not polite applause. Real thunderous applause. Maya's eyes swept the crowd. She saw Stevens and Lopez clapping hard. She saw Briggs in his wheelchair, tears streaming down his face, saluting her. She saw Dixon and Marshall, the men who'd abandoned Briggs, standing at the back, heads down in shame. And she saw hundreds of faces looking at her with something they'd never shown before. respect. After the ceremony, as soldiers lined up to shake her hand and congratulate her, a young female private approached nervously. "Sergeant Reeves," she said quietly. I wanted to say thank you. I enlisted 6 months ago and it's been hard. Really hard. A lot of guys say women don't belong in combat roles. But what you did," her voice cracked. "You showed us we do belong. You showed us we're strong enough." Maya looked at this young soldier, barely 20 years old, facing the same doubts and mockery Maya had faced for years. She put a hand on the private's shoulder. "You are strong enough. Don't let anyone tell you different. And when they doubt you, when they say you can't do it, you prove them wrong. Not with words. With action." The private nodded, eyes shining. Maya watched her walk away and thought about her father, about all the struggles, all the doubts, all the times she'd wanted to quit. She'd never been fighting just for herself. She'd been fighting for every woman who came after her, every soldier who'd been told they weren't good enough, and she'd won. 6 weeks later, Maya shipped out to Special Forces training. The night before she left, she stood in the desert outside the base looking at the stars, the same desert that had almost killed her. The same desert where she'd become a legend. She thought about those 72 hours, about the pain, the suffering, the impossible choices. Would she do it again? Without hesitation, because that's what real strength was. Not physical power, not endurance, but the willingness to sacrifice everything for what was right. She turned and walked back toward the base, toward her future, toward the next impossible challenge. Behind her, the desert wind whispered across the sand, carrying the story of the woman who'd done the impossible. The woman they'd found unconscious in the desert. The woman whose 72 hours had become legend. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves. A soldier, a hero, a woman who'd proved she belonged.